Welcome to the Pick the Brain podcast, where we pick the brains of the brightest minds in the areas of health, self-improvement, productivity, and kicking ass at life. I am Jeremy Fisher, always alongside my co-host Erin Falconer. All right, Erin, today we're going to talk about our health a little bit. We're going to talk about how to stop sabotaging it, and we're even going to lead into how to eat healthy on a budget. You excited?
Okay, yes, and hungry.
All right, let's get started. The 3-step guide to stop sabotaging and make progress on your health. From Pick the Brain contributor Sai Kahana. For the longest time, I struggled to get healthier. It seemed that I couldn't lose weight or stick to my diet no matter what I tried. It seemed like I was sabotaging myself, and I had no willpower, no self-control, and no discipline. If I couldn't even stop myself from eating a cookie, how was I going to do all the other amazing things that I want to accomplish in my life? Looking back today from a healthier place in my life, I can see clearly how using discipline or willpower to get healthier is a myth. Not only are these methods inept, but they also make us feel like failures, pushing us deeper into depression and affecting our confidence. The real reason we're not able to make long-lasting health changes is because we secretly don't want to. Our unconscious is motivated to keep up with our bad habits because they help us avoid our real feelings and anxieties. Avoiding how we truly feel makes us feel less stress, and so our subconscious easily overrides our conscious wishes. In psychology, this is known as avoidant coping, and it's a common way we deal with stress and worry. Using the 3-step framework we're about to talk about is a useful tool to break out of the avoidant coping cycle of overeating and finally getting healthier like you've always dreamed of. Step 1. Learn how to identify the symptoms of self-sabotage. The first step is to identify your patterns of self-sabotage. In other words, what is your default avoidant pattern that stops you from making progress? Some common ones are overeating. Many of us turn to food for comfort because we're eating to feel emotionally better. We tend to eat far more than just eating to feel physically satisfied. The emotional or stress-related void that we're trying to fill with food leads to stress eating, emotional overeating, or even binge eating, which makes us feel completely out of control and guilty. Another one's procrastination. By procrastinating on going to the gym, for example, we don't have to confront the reality that we're not very fit, or we don't have to compare ourselves to other strong people at the gym, and we don't have to make an effort to squeeze in this activity at the end of a long day. All of these help us feel better in the moment, which is why we procrastinate again and again. Another one is negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Self-sabotage also shows up as rumination, negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions swirling around in our brain. It seems like we can never be fully happy. We're self-critical and we compare ourselves to everyone else. We question our willpower and self-control, and this leads to lower self-esteem, leaving us depressed. And finally, obsessive control. Because we're not able to make positive changes, we feel out of control about our health. So we tend to compensate by being obsessively controlling about other things in our lives, like being a perfectionist at work, keeping the house clean, or going to extremes with food, engaging in very restrictive diets that ultimately fail. Step 2. Dig deeper to find the cause of your avoidant coping. Once you find your default coping pattern from step 1, it's time to dig deeper and find out what you're avoiding that's causing you to compensate this way. To do this, use the rule of 5 whys. For each why, you need to give yourself an answer with the next why questioning the previous answer. For example, if you're binge eating, your 5 why conversation might look like this. Number 1, my default pattern is overeating at night. Why? Number 2, because it makes me feel better. Why? Number 3, because it's my reward at the end of a long, tiring day. Why? Number 4, because it's the only time of day I have for myself. Why? Number 5, I can finally relax after the kids have gone to bed. Why? Number 6, I'm running around all day and just sitting at the table longer is my time to chill before I have to tidy up the house. At the end of the 5 why conversation, you should have a deeper answer to your coping. Something that feels like a fundamental truth that makes you sigh and makes you feel a little sad. It can also be liberating to finally realize what's holding you back. Most importantly, if you change this root feeling or behavior, it should instantly stop you from engaging in avoidant coping. For example, in this case of binge eating, if you take some time out for yourself to relax in between the day, you'll likely be far less tired by dinner time and automatically less likely to rely on food to feel better. Number 3, accept your feelings and make a change. The last step of this process is to acknowledge the result of your 5 why exercise to be true. It's easy to brush this off and feel like something this simple can't really help. Sometimes it's hard to come to terms with the things that are holding us back. For example, we don't want to admit that we aren't going to the gym because we're embarrassed of making a fool out of ourselves in front of everyone else. But being honest with ourselves and taking actions to bust through that discomfort is where real progress and change come from. To make lifestyle changes that stick, we don't just need to make conscious efforts to develop healthy habits, but also recognize and win over the unconscious battles happening deep within. All right, Erin, you got that 3-step guide. Did you have a favorite step from this article?
First of all, I'd like to say, forget the steps. What I like, I will talk about the steps in a second, but what I like about this article is if you distill down, each one of these points is about something very simple, and that's about being self-aware. We talk about this all the time, and this is a very good example. It's broken down in very clear points of how to do that, which I think is very important because a lot of people don't know how to do that. But this is simply a case of sitting with yourself and analyzing your behavior, your patterns. And once you do that, the answers start to become pretty crystal clear pretty fast. And so this step is so important, just doing this self-analysis, because so many times we're just dialing things in and not thinking it. And the end of the week, we feel like, bad physically or bad mentally. And it's because we're not taking the time to sit down and evaluate exactly what we're doing, how we're spending our time, who we're spending our time with. And so this is a really good example of what I'm talking about when I say do the work on yourself. And it's not complicated. So my favorite step then is step 2, because it actually beat by beat kind of breaks down a thought process of how to look at your patterns and what you're doing. And again, I think this is so important, not just for health, for everything that you're doing, for all of the major things you're trying to accomplish in your life. This is like step 1. So feel free to refer to something like this, no matter what your challenge is on. But I think this is also particularly important because eating is something we don't often think about. Oddly enough, even when we're trying to lose weight, it's like blinders on type of thinking. And so this self-analysis is very important if you want to really make a dent in your health. Was that a long enough answer for you?
No, I think it's a good answer because I think you're right. I think the self-evaluation thing it keeps showing up in different aspects of our lives, and you cannot. It's almost like you're addressing the core issue instead of just the symptoms of the issue. The symptoms of the issue could be overeating or undereating or eating poorly. The symptom could be, having difficulty at work. The symptom could be problems with your relationships. And very often the disease, the cause, the reason all of those things are happening, the thing that's manifesting those symptoms is that you're not closely analyzing how you're reacting, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, the actions that you're taking based on the thoughts that you have about these things. So no, I think it's a critical point. Now, of the things that they mentioned in this article, have you ever struggled with any of them?
I've got to be honest with you, health and diet have never been something I've really struggled with. I've always been I'm very in tune with the way I feel about like food. I don't just eat things. I eat things, and then if I don't feel good, I don't eat those foods again. I'm very sensitive to food. So like overeating, the only thing I would say I struggled with, which is not necessarily on this list, is if I get really stressed out about something, I have zero appetite. And so if there's like a real problem, like not like I'm in a bad mood or I had a bad day at work, but if there's like a real problem, like somebody's sick or something bad is happening with the business or something like that, then I can go, because I don't have a huge appetite, I can go for long periods of time without eating it a lot. And that's obviously very bad because then my energy starts to deplete. It's obviously not healthy. I'm tired. I'm irritable. These are all things that are not good for solving problems. So as far as eating, that's something I really have to pay attention to. But on the regular, I'm very very tuned into what works for my body and what doesn't. And I know when I'm working out enough and when I'm not. I feel it. I don't know if I feel it more than the average person or if I'm just paying attention to it more.
Well,
Once
it's probably because you place so much importance on paying attention to it.
yeah. I mean, I can't underscore enough how important that is to just pay attention to yourself.
I'll tell you what I do, and they didn't really mention it. They kind of briefly sort of went over it, but I've got my own issue with the food, the healthy eating thing. Is I am just lazy.
Right.
I am. I'm just lazy. Like
Right.
eating healthy requires like barely more effort than eating unhealthy.
Right.
But that barely amount is like enough for me. I'm like, oh, no, I'm gonna do the lazy route, and it's unfortunate. It's one of the things that I always have to be mindful of is spend 10 extra minutes preparing your food, or 10 extra minutes paying attention to what you're buying in the store. And I mean, that small amount of time makes such a big impact, because like you said, very often I will eat bad food and I will feel bad. And it's one of those things where it's like, come on, be smart, Jeremy. Just eat good and you'll feel good for the most part. I mean, it's not that simple. It's not that difficult. But for whatever reason, like when hungry Jeremy is out on the prowl trying to find something to eat, he's like, I'll just pick whatever's easy. I'll pick something up. It's no big deal. I don't really want to spend any time.
What's the worst thing you eat in like any given week?
Oh, and I'm not even saying I'm not even going to act like this is something I'm ashamed of. I just know it's something that I shouldn't do. Thick burgers, Hardee's thick burgers.
Okay.
I
don't even know what that is.
I love them. They're this like just greasy, juicy, thick. It's a restaurant that we have on the East Coast, Hardee's, and the Carl's Jr.
I know Carl's Jr. I've heard
Okay, so Carl's Jr. Basically the same thing, yeah. And so just a big burger, and it's so good. I love it, but it's like terrible. I mean, it tastes good,
Well, at least you're aware that it's terrible, because honestly, a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, well, honestly, I mean, in general, I mean, when it comes to what you eat, I mean, the more green you can eat, the better. And, minimize your meat portions. Like most people, I think, know that. And there's ways to make green food taste good, obviously. There's tons of ways to do it.
That's the encouraging thing. Every single day, I feel like there are more and more foods that are less like, this is just like jiggly tofu.
Oh,
they're
no.
like, and I live in the mecca of it in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, now more than ever. I mean, you've got billions of blogs that show you how to turn kale into something that's not just a garnish like most people used to. By the way, did you know that kale, I heard this, it may be wrong, somebody made it fact check me online, but I heard that I think like 70 or 80% of the world's kale used to be bought by Pizza Hut because they would just put it around their salad bar. No one would, it was like garnish. It was like make the salad bar look like a garden. And then in the 90s and 2000s, they were like, oh, you can actually eat this stuff.
Somebody in California was like, wait. Somebody in LA was like, we could make a lot of money actually making salads with this.
But I'll tell you what, my wife's got a couple recipes on kale, sauteed kale and like massaged kale salad. Those things are awesome. Absolutely love it. Yeah, fantastic. Anyways, we need to get to the next article. I don't want to drag this with too much. Next, one of the things that is a hindrance for me sometimes, not so much anymore, but it definitely used to be, is not only did I want to try to find food that was quick, I wanted to find food that was cheap. Yeah. It's another one of the barriers that people run into on healthy eating. So next, we're going to talk about how to eat healthy on a budget.
Let's do it.
How to eat healthy on a budget. From Pick the Brain contributor Peter Patterson. Most people really do want to eat healthy, but feel like it's cost prohibitive. Luckily, there are a few simple ways to maintain a healthy diet without putting a strain on your wallet. Here's how to keep your kitchen stocked with satisfying and nutritious foods. Number 1, never set out without a plan. One of the quickest ways to overspend at the grocery store is by going there without any idea of what you want to buy. You'll end up tossing anything and everything in your cart only to find that you've added too many unhealthy snacks. Plus, you'll spend a lot more than you intended to. Always make a list before heading to the market. Number 2, stick with seasonal foods. When fruits and vegetables are in season, they're less expensive than when they're not in season. Plus, eating in-season foods means you'll be supporting local farms and industry. When you shop local, you end up getting food with fewer preservatives and chemicals because it doesn't have to go through an extensive shipping process. When in doubt, ask your local farmer's market which foods are in season. Number 3, buy in bulk. If you're only feeding yourself, buying in bulk may feel like an unnecessary expense, but if you buy non-perishable foods in bulk, you'll end up spending less money in the long run. Even perishable foods can be bought in bulk as long as you have the storage space. Split meat into portions and store it in your freezer. Cook a huge batch of soup for the weekend and divide it into servings and store the excess in the freezer. Number 4, keep your kitchen full. When your fridge and pantry are stocked with healthy foods, you'll be less likely to eat meals out or grab unhealthy snacks when you're on the go. The more healthy foods you have on hand, the less tempted you'll be to reach for junk food. An easy way to always keep your food storage filled to the brim is to shop sales. When something healthy is on sale, like lentils or brown rice, scoop up a few extra packages. When your refrigerator and pantry are stocked with delicious, healthy foods, you'll have an easier time keeping your health on track. With some smart shopping tricks, you can load up your cart with plenty of nutritious foods without breaking the bank. And to finish this out, let's talk about some quick cooking tips. Cook large portions and use your leftovers like we talked about earlier. Drink water instead of juice or sweetened drinks. It's free and has no kilojoules. Embrace whole grains and beans. They're usually inexpensive. Buy and cook a whole chicken. This is the quickest and cheapest way to cook and eat chicken. And finally, make your own desserts. As a matter of fact, make as much food yourself as you can, because eating in is almost always cheaper than eating out. All right, Erin, we just heard that article from Peter Patterson. Do you do any of the things that he mentioned?
I do sometimes. I will say one of the best things that I have made myself aware of is this point number 1, never set out without a plan. Because I found myself so many times coming home from the grocery store and because I was hungry, first of all, and kind of hungry and didn't really have a plan just because I need to get some food for tonight. I'd come home with the oddest, just weird groceries that maybe I had enough to do something for that night, but then random things that I was kind of craving in my hunger that never ended up getting used. I was wasting a lot of money is what I'm saying. And even now, I have my basic things mapped out in my head that I want to get, but if I don't take it much further, if I don't, I'll always end up with these random things that are very on a whim. Still to this day, I do that. And so the closer I can stick to a plan, a written down list about what to buy, the better. It also saves me at least so much time in the grocery store.
I heard somebody say that you should never make a decision if you're angry, if you're tired, or if you're hungry.
Yeah.
And it's like what you were talking about. I've gone to the grocery store hungry sometimes, and I would walk out of the store with so many things that I would not have bought if I had just eaten before I went in there.
It's crazy what the mind can do in front of all those foods.
Well, I think they've got a couple of good tips in this article. So I've actually got a tip that I would add to this, and this is just what some people might call cheap, I would call frugal side of me. There's a difference, by the way. I don't know if you know that, Erin.
There's a difference.
Yeah, and I keep telling people when they call me cheap, I'm like, listen, I'm just frugal. There's a big difference. Cheap means that you're willing to pay the minimum amount for something, even though it might be a terrible product.
That's right.
Frugal is you try to be smart about the money you spend. There's a big difference. So
big difference. I'm neither.
As what my wife would call a cheap or what I would call a frugal person, I must say, one of the things they left out is shop deals. Buy deals. Your local grocery store, you can sign up for text message alerts or email alerts, and they will send you some kind of notification on, hey, salmon is 20% off. Hey, kale's going to be $1 a bundle this week or whatever. And just absolutely rely on those because they do that to get you in the store, but generally speaking, you can find coupons and discounts and deals on things that you would have bought anyway.
Totally.
And most people nowadays have a freezer. I mean, buy things when they're on sale, put them in the freezer, and thaw them later. You can buy them when they're on sale, stack up on those things. And I'm surprised they didn't mention that. They did say buy in bulk. That was one thing that they mentioned, but I would add to that, look for deals and look for specials because even the super high-end expensive grocery stores that are out there, they offer good deals on things. And, so shop those deals. That's something I would add.
Okay, good. I mean, I totally agree with you, and I think there are so many savings to be had. But I'm like, for example, your first example was 20% off salmon, and I'm immediately like, why? Why is it 20% off? Is it because it's bad? Has it been sitting there too long? I mean,
really?
I'm like, they're trying to get rid of it. They're trying to unload it on me.
Wow.
But then
That's funny.
if it wasn't like a fresh food, I'd be, yes, then I'm all about it.
That's funny. So there's actually a marketing philosophy behind that, and it's perceived value. Certain
Right.
things have a higher perceived value, and so it's interesting that you bring that up because it is funny. That is a common thing where if someone sees a discount on something, it doesn't matter if the product is a quality product or not. If someone sees a discount on it, there is some instinctual thing inside us that makes us go, okay, what's wrong with it? Like,
Yeah.
can it not bring full price? There must be something wrong with it if it can't bring full price, especially with something as important as what you put in your body, like food.
Right.
The numbers start ratcheting up, where if you discount things too low, they're like, I'm not buying that. Your steak's half off. I'm not touching that. Your steak's probably rotten.
Right.
And so it's very interesting that you bring that up because I think that's probably a barrier that a lot of people face.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, we've got a great price on this show, and it's absolutely free. So, Erin, put your perceived value on that. Maybe the show's worth what you're paying for it. Who knows?
No, it's a steal.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. Hopefully, some people found some tips in here to work on your brain and get yourself kind of primed to eating healthy and analyzing yourself so that you want to eat healthy. And then, if you actually do want to eat healthy, go out there and find some things that are hopefully not rotten just because they're on sale.
Somebody gets food poisoning because you, Jeremy. I mean,
You're
it's
right.
on you.
I should have put a disclaimer on this podcast. All right. Well, until next time, I'm Jeremy Fisher,
And I'm Erin Faulkner.
reminding you to keep moving, keep thinking, and keep growing. And make sure you cook your food all the way through.